analyze your data, but in order for it to reflect your current data, you have to refresh your pivot table anytime you make a change. So again, if I make a change to my source data here on this spreadsheet, I have to go back and refresh my pivot table before it will show. So I'm going to change my data. I'm going to change the 1 14-year-old to a 12-year-old. And again, if I go back to my practice pivot, it's not been reflected yet. It's still showing that the 14-year-old is there. So I can either right-click on the pivot table and click refresh, and this will refresh my data, or I can go up to the pivot table tools contextual ribbon, click analyze, and click refresh here, and this will refresh my data. Either way, either from the ribbon on the analyze ribbon on the pivot tools contextual ribbons, or by right-clicking and choosing refresh. Once I refresh my data, that 14-year-old is gone and the 12-year-old has been added. So those are the two ways that you can refresh your pivot chart or tables. The other way is to set it up so that every time you open up the Excel spreadsheet, the data is refreshed automatically. Now this only works after you open Excel, so you might have to save it, close it, open it again. But every time you open Excel, you know you're going to have the latest version of the pivot table. So to do that, we're actually going to have to change the pivot table options. So right click on your pivot table, go to pivot table options, and you are going to go to the Data tab where it says Refresh Data when opening the file. Make sure that box is selected. Click OK. Now every time I open up my Excel workbook, that pivot table will be refreshed. One more time, right click on the pivot table, choose Pivot Table Options, go to the Data tab, and make sure the Refresh Data when opening the file checkbox is selected. Click OK. If you would like more practice on creating pivot tables, you can find a spreadsheet called Pivot Table in the Advanced Excel workbook that you download from the class Moodle site. There is a large amount of data for you to play with. I suggest creating a pivot table based on this data. If you need a strict guideline or a specific example of what to do, you can find that on page 7 of your workbook. If you have any questions, you can contact me at the Twinsburg Public Library or post on the Advanced Excel discussion forum.